The case today took place in a 4-story vintage house in the heart of Jinping City, Guangdong. This house was once a symbol of wealth and prosperity, but after being abandoned for 8 years, it hid a horrifying secret. On November 25, 2013, while cleaning up an inherited house, a couple and a group of workers discovered 2 paint buckets filled with concrete. When the concrete was chipped away, they were shocked to find human remains compressed in the tight space inside. A story full of betrayal, hatred, and despair led to a crime meticulously concealed for nearly a year. A sophisticated plan to dispose of the bodies and create a perfect cover to deceive everyone. In the end, the truth could not remain buried forever. The crime was exposed. A severe sentence was delivered, but behind it was unending pain and the tragic fate of an innocent child. Join us as we explore this shocking case, a family tragedy that stunned an entire society. Horrifying discovery: 2 bodies encased in concrete and plastic drums. The house where the incident occurred is a 4-story building standing majestically in the heart of Jinping, Shantou County, Guangdong Province, China. It is a vintage house surrounded by red brick walls. Though the paint was peeling, the intricate patterns on the walls remained intact. Built in 2000, it was once considered one of the most luxurious houses in the city. The owners of the house were an elderly couple who specialized in silk trading. Being affluent, they meticulously crafted every detail of the house. However, they moved away 8 years ago. The house was put up for sale at that time, but due to real estate market fluctuations, no buyers came forward, and it was left abandoned. Over time, the house deteriorated and became outdated compared to the surrounding homes. The rusty gate, cracked glass windows, and overgrown weeds gave the place a desolate look. On November 25, 2013, after completing the inheritance procedures, Zhou Weilin and his wife, the original owner's nephew and niece-in-law, hired some workers to clean the place. They began by clearing the essential areas to make the house tidy and livable, removing debris and garbage around the premises. Inside, a thick layer of dust covered everything, from faded fabric sofas to old, moldy paintings on the walls. Despite being abandoned for 8 years and having utilities disconnected, the house hadn't become a hideout for addicts or looters, thanks to vigilant neighbors. As the workers cleaned the main living area and kitchen on the first floor, Mr. and Mrs. Zhou went upstairs to inspect the smaller rooms on the second and third floors. While discussing the third-floor bedrooms, they suddenly heard a loud scream from one of the workers downstairs. A female worker, while cleaning the kitchen, found 2 large, dust-covered blue paint buckets behind a door. When she tried to move one of them, she realized it was very heavy and called others for help. After much effort, they dragged the buckets into the light. The buckets were sealed tightly, looked old, and seemed unused for a long time. Out of curiosity, one worker used a gardening tool to pry open the lid of the first bucket. Instead of paint, they saw hardened concrete reaching the rim. When they examined the second bucket, they found it also filled with concrete, but it seemed much older. The plastic was faded and had cracks running along its surface, as if a slight touch might shatter it. When the top rubber seal was pried off, the cracks widened. Seeing a significant crack on the second bucket, someone decided to open it further. As soon as the plastic was removed, a fragment resembling a human foot appeared before their eyes. The realization that both buckets contained human remains caused sheer panic and terrified screams. Mr. and Mrs. Zhou never imagined that such a horrifying crime was concealed in their inherited house. They immediately called the Jinping City police to report the discovery. Initial clues from the scene and forensic examination. At 10 a.m. on November 25, 2013, police arrived at the crime scene. They quickly established a perimeter to ensure no one could interfere with the investigation. Investigators began taking notes, photographing, and collecting evidence from every angle. Specialized tools were used to dismantle the concrete inside the paint buckets. The investigators worked swiftly and meticulously. When the final layer of concrete was removed, they found not only skeletal remains, but also the victim's clothing and personal belongings, all emitting a foul stench. The remains in the older paint bucket were larger in size. Though the bones had decayed, they retained some features of an adult, with a robust skeletal frame and significant length. The pelvis and femur indicated the victim was an adult with a sturdy build. Brown stains seeped through the layers of concrete at the bottom of the bucket, believed to be the victim's blood. From the dismantling and positioning of the bodies, it was clear that the victim had been murdered and then forced into the paint bucket in a bent-over position, hips at the bottom, legs and head folded toward the bucket's opening. The remains in the second paint bucket were smaller and evidently female. The delicate bone structure, slender femur, and graceful pelvis suggested the victim might be a young woman. Fragments of fabric mixed with the decaying concrete produced an overwhelming stench, making the air suffocating and unbearable. The police swiftly transported the two sets of remains and all discovered items to headquarters for forensic analysis. The remains were kept in separate areas and preserved carefully to avoid contamination. Forensic experts began examining every detail, from bone structures to signs of decomposition. Advanced technology was employed to determine the victim's age, gender, and cause of death. Meanwhile, investigators cross-referenced information from missing persons reports with the victim's features, hoping to uncover clues to their identities and circumstances. In 2005, Mr. and Mrs. Zhou, the previous owners of the house, unexpectedly left Jinping City to live abroad. They abandoned the four-story house, which had once been considered among the city's most luxurious residences. Initially, investigators suspected the remains might belong to the elderly couple or their relatives. However, deeper investigation revealed that Mr. and Mrs. Zhou had no children. In 2005, they sold their business and property before moving abroad. Mrs. Zhou passed away in 2010 at their residence in the United States. After her death, Mr. Zhou returned his wife's ashes to China and settled in Taihe Village, Shantou County, Guangdong, with his relatives. At home, his health gradually declined. Zhou Weilin and his wife, Mr. Zhou's nephew and niece-in-law, cared for him until his passing. To thank them, Mr. Zhou left them the abandoned house in Jinping before he died. With no connection between Zhou Weilin's family and the case, the two sets of remains found in the house had nothing to do with them. At 10 p.m. on November 25, 2013, after hours of work, police concluded that the remains in the paint buckets belonged to one male and one female. The time of death was determined to be between November and December 2012, approximately a year before their discovery. Using CT scan technology, experts reconstructed the bone structure and found minute details invisible to the naked eye. A detailed examination of the pelvis and bone injuries confirmed that the smaller set of remains, found in the newer bucket, belonged to a female aged 29 to 34. The larger remains belonged to a male aged 39 to 43. Notably, the left rib cage of the male victim showed severe damage, combined with blood stains found on fabric fragments and within the concrete. Police concluded that the male victim sustained injuries before being entombed in concrete. Since both sets of remains were largely intact, experts extracted DNA from the bones and teeth to assist in identifying the victims. Police also reviewed records and alerted families with missing persons from 2011 to 2012 to come forward for identification. Caretaker of the house. Initial police suspicions. The discovery of two bodies in the heart of the city quickly spread throughout Guangdong province. Police deemed this a particularly serious murder case requiring urgent investigation. The time of death was nearly a year ago, and the crime scene was located on a busy road. where constant traffic and dust had obscured many crucial clues. The cleanup by Zhou Weilin and 4 workers further disturbed the scene. Upon investigation, police found that the 4-story house had been listed for sale since 2005, but due to the lack of suitable buyers, it remained abandoned. Since then, the house had been under the care of a neighbor, Yang Shihuang. When Mr. and Mrs. Zhou were alive, they sent a small monthly caretaker fee to Yang Shihuang via bank transfer. When summoned for questioning, Huang claimed he had no knowledge of the 2 paint buckets. Since the Zhou couple never returned to visit, his family merely accepted the fee without actually maintaining the property. Weeds grew waist-high, windows were broken, and everything inside was covered in dust. However, according to Zhou Weilin, while the house was abandoned, the gate and doors were always securely locked. The gate was rusty, but the lock appeared relatively new. On the morning of November 25, 2013, Zhou Weilin brought workers to clean the house but had to stop by Huang's home to get the key. The key previously left by Mr. Zhou at the bank didn't work, forcing Weilin to seek out Huang. Initially, Yang Shihuang was reluctant to hand over the key and only did so after Zhou Weilin presented valid legal documents. This cautious behavior, combined with his attitude, aroused police suspicion. The affair between husband's brother and sister-in-law, uncovering the motive for murder. Digging deeper into Yang Shihuang, police discovered that his wife, Chen Maijie, had eloped with his elder brother, Yang Xizheng. In early December 2012, their affair had been widely known among family and neighbors, providing a critical lead in the case. Huang had access to the house keys, and his wife and brother disappeared precisely around the time of the murders. Furthermore, the victims' builds and ages matched the forensic findings. With a clear motive, police suspected the victims were Chen Maijie and Yang Xizheng. Quietly contacting their families, police confirmed that since December 2012, neither had been seen. Initially, they responded to messages, but by March 2013, all communication ceased. The pair claimed they wanted to live together and asked not to be disturbed. Police requested DNA samples from Yang Xizheng's daughters and Chen Maijie's parents. 2 rounds of testing confirmed that the remains encased in concrete were indeed Yang Xizheng and Chen Maijie. At the time of her death, Chen Maijie was 30 years old, a beautiful, talented, and energetic woman, standing 1.67 meters tall. She had fair skin, a charming smile, and a distinctive snaggletooth. Born into a modest farming family, she attended university in Jinping and later worked as a contract teacher at a middle school 7 kilometers away. During this time, she met and married Yang Shihuang, a fellow teacher 7 years her senior. The Shihuang family was well off, and after their 2004 wedding, they were given land and money to build a 2-story house adjacent to the Zhou family's 4-story home. The 2 families were close. In late 2009, Maijie gave birth to a son, and their seemingly happy family was admired by all. However, their happiness was short-lived when Maijie's affair with Xizheng was exposed. Yang Xizheng, 11 years older, was a calm and successful project manager in his wife's family business. He was known as a devoted father and supportive husband. Yet, for his illicit relationship with Maijie, Xizheng gave up everything. In November 2012, after the affair became public, he divorced his wife. Their daughters stayed with their mother, and Xizheng was dismissed from his job. Although divorced, Maijie remained legally married to Yang Shihuang, who refused to grant a divorce. He deeply loved his wife and wanted to maintain a stable family for their son. Given the circumstances, Huang became the prime suspect. He had access to the crime scene, and his wife and brother's betrayal likely caused deep emotional wounds and a desire for revenge. With this lead, police launched an extensive investigation into Huang. They gathered evidence, interviewed witnesses, and examined his connections during the victim's disappearance. Here is the English translation of the provided text. The builder's testimonies. The killer revealed. According to the forensic results, the victim's time of death was between November and December 2012. However, from November 2012 to March 2013, the victims' families continued to receive messages assuring them of their safety. Tracing the social media accounts of Chen Maijio and Yang Xizheng, the last login was on March 29, 2013, from Jinping City, Shantou County, Guangdong Province, the same area where Huang lived. This indicated that the perpetrator had faked the messages to cover up the crime. The killer likely possessed the victim's phones and personal documents. Police further discovered that in early December 2012, Yang Shihuang hired builders and ordered construction materials like sand, cement, and gravel. This coincided with the estimated time of the murders. The builders reported that on December 9, 2012, Huang contacted them to pave a small path behind his garden. The construction materials arrived at noon on December 10, 2012, and the team completed the path within 2 days. The contractor confirmed that there was a large surplus of materials left after the job was done. Strangely, the next morning, Huang used the leftover materials himself to extend a small path in the garden. This unusual act puzzled the builders, as it was uncommon for a homeowner to modify a completed project on their own. From these details, police suspected that Huang used the surplus construction materials to dispose of Maijio and Xizheng's bodies by encasing them in concrete inside paint buckets. To avoid alerting the suspect, Jinping police quietly continued their investigation. Once they gathered enough evidence to prove Huang's guilt, they obtained a search and arrest warrant on November 28, 2013. Yang Shihuang was taken to the station for questioning. He denied any involvement in the murders and the disposal of the bodies, rejecting all accusations from the investigation team. However, when police searched his home, they found 2 mobile phones belonging to the victims in his safe. Although the phones had long been out of battery, they were still functional. Police recovered data from the phones to gather clues about the circumstances and timing of the murders. All calls, messages, and information related to Yang Shihuang or others during the period in question were thoroughly analyzed. The phone data revealed the complex relationship between Yang Shihuang, Maijio, and Xizheng. Messages and calls around the time of the crime indicated that their final meeting took place on December 8, 2012, at Yang Shihuang's home. This was also believed to be when the victims were murdered. After collecting sufficient witness testimony and evidence, knowing he could no longer escape punishment, Huang confessed to the murders and the disposal of the bodies. Driven by emotional conflict, he planned and executed the killing of his wife and his elder brother, concealing their remains in 2 large plastic paint buckets inside the abandoned house. Shihuang kept the victims' phones to deceive their families, maintaining the illusion that they were still alive and safe. Shocking discovery after an unsafe sexual encounter. Yang Shihuang, a 38-year-old middle school teacher, worked at the same school as his wife, Chen Maijio, who was a contract teacher, standing 1.73 meters tall and weighing 71 kilograms. Shihuang was known for his bright appearance and decent looks. Colleagues and neighbors described him as kind, gentle, and reserved but well-liked. Shihuang came from a well-off family. His father was a doctor, and his mother was a state employee. He had only one older brother. From a young age, he was known for his intelligence and earned his teaching position through his own merits. At 29, he married Maijio, who was 7 years younger. In July 2004, for months after their wedding, they built a spacious 2-story house on land gifted by his parents. Early on, the couple decided to postpone having children to focus on building their home and accumulating household necessities. Even after their lives stabilized, they remained childless. In 2009, Maijao unexpectedly became pregnant and gave birth to a son. The arrival of their child after 6 years of marriage strengthened their bond. In his confession to the police, Shi Huang revealed that in early July 2012, he attended a reunion with old classmates. After the party, out of pride and excitement, he went with his friends for an after-party. In a drunken state, he and 3 friends brought a hostess to a hotel and spent the night with her. 6 days after the reunion, Shi Huang began experiencing genital pain, particularly when urinating. Embarrassed, he didn't tell his wife and instead visited a urologist alone. At the hospital, Shi Huang used a fake name and hid the fact that he had slept with a prostitute. This secrecy led the doctor to order multiple tests to determine the cause of his symptoms. At the end of the day, the doctor informed Shi Huang that, fortunately, he hadn't contracted serious diseases like HIV, but had a grade 2 bacterial infection due to unprotected sex. To recover, he needed medication and to abstain from sexual activity for an extended period. However, the bad news didn't end there. The doctor also discovered that Shi Huang was congenitally infertile. His semen contained fluid but no sperm. This meant he was incapable of fathering a child. Initially, Shi Huang refused to believe the results because his son looked just like him. Doubting the diagnosis, Shi Huang went to a larger hospital for a second opinion. The results were the same. He was infertile by birth and could not father a child. This revelation left Shi Huang in shock. He couldn't believe his beautiful, gentle wife had betrayed him. The son he loved so dearly was not biologically his. To confirm his suspicions, Shi Huang secretly took a hair sample from his son for a DNA test. After a week of waiting, the results devastated him. He and the child shared only 25% genetic similarity, indicating the boy was not his biological son, but was related to him by blood. The only other male relative he had was his brother, Yang Xizheng, since the 2 brothers looked 80% alike. Confusion was understandable. To eliminate any doubt, Shi Huang took hair samples from Xizheng and his son for another DNA test. The results confirmed his worst fear. His son was indeed Yang Xizheng's biological child. Pent-up rage reaches its peak and determination for revenge. Betrayed by his wife and his own brother, Huang began closely monitoring his wife's activities. He tracked Maijiao's phone, teaching schedule, and outings. Although he knew about their affair, Maijiao was cautious and left no evidence on her phone. Because his busy work schedule prevented him from constant surveillance, Shi Huang hired a private detective to assist. On July 28, 2012, Maijiao and Xizheng's affair was officially exposed. The detective filmed the pair displaying intimate behavior and entering a hotel together, an undeniable piece of evidence. Huang admitted that he first entertained the idea of killing his wife and brother in mid-November 2012. After their affair was revealed, Maijiao and Xizheng decided to run away together. They moved in together, resigned from their jobs, and filed for divorce. Xizheng's divorce was finalized smoothly, but Maijiao faced difficulties due to a custody dispute. In retaliation, Shi Huang sent their son to his parents' home, preventing Maijiao from taking the child with her. Shi Huang had raised and cared for the boy for 4 years. Upon learning of his infertility and that the boy wasn't his biological son, he felt entitled to keep the child. The pain of betrayal fueled his determination to deny Maijiao custody. The situation worsened when Chen Maijiao brazenly informed Yang Shi Huang that the child was not his biological son. Although he had known this, her words were a brutal slap in the face. She even bluntly stated that he failed to satisfy her physically. Chen Maijiao's disrespect and deceit enraged and disgusted Shi Huang. The sting of betrayal and deception drove him to seek revenge. The murder plan and the killer's elaborate cover-up. On November 23, 2012, Huang bought 2 used paint buckets from a hardware store 15 kilometers away to avoid suspicion and hid them in the abandoned house. After several failed attempts to arrange a meeting with the victims, at 7:30 p.m. on December 8, 2012, Xijing and Maijao came to Huang's house to discuss custody of the nearly 4-year-old boy. The conversation quickly escalated into a heated argument. Losing control of his anger, Shi Huang pulled out a prepared knife and stabbed his brother twice. Shocked, Maijao staggered to run for help, but Shi Huang grabbed her by the shirt. He pinned her down and strangled her with all his strength until she stopped resisting. After ensuring both were dead, he removed their jewelry and watches. At 1:45 a.m. on December 9, 2012, under the cover of night, Shi Huang moved the bodies and the motorcycle to the abandoned house next door. He forced the bodies into the paint buckets he had prepared. Knowing he needed to conceal the evidence, Shi Huang began executing his plan to hide the crime. After cleaning the scene, the next morning, Shi Huang contacted a construction crew to repair the garden. He claimed he needed a small path paved to justify the purchase of cement, sand, and gravel. Since materials arrived late, the path was completed by the afternoon of December 11, 2012. That night, when the crew left their tools behind, Shi Huang used the leftover materials to conceal the bodies. He stuffed the corpses into the buckets, but due to rigor mortis from being left in uncomfortable positions for 2 days, he couldn't arrange them neatly. So he poured concrete directly into each bucket until it was full. This hastily done concealment meant that when the cleaning crew later pried open the buckets, a victim's foot was visible. With the remaining concrete, he extended the path in the garden to prevent the workers from being suspicious. After dealing with the bodies, Shi Huang burned the victims' personal documents. Apart from their phones, he kept only the money and jewelry for personal use. Once everything was done, he threw the murder weapon, the knife used to kill Xijing, into the Hajiang River, which flows south of Jinping City. Shi Huang ordered paint and decals online to change the color of his brother's motorcycle from black to red. He removed the license plate and sold it for scrap, even though the motorcycle was still functional. Knowing that the victims had resigned and intended to relocate, Shi Huang fabricated a story that Xijing and Maijao had run away together out of shame. To avoid suspicion, he used their phones to contact their families. By March 2013, confident he had gotten away with it, he stopped impersonating them and stored the phones in his safe for potential future use. Shi Huang believed his crime was perfectly concealed. However, the death of the original homeowners, the Zhou couple, who left the abandoned 4-story house to their nephew Zhou Weilin, brought the crime to light. Just 4 days after the skeletal remains were discovered, young Shi Huang's crimes were fully exposed. The severe verdict and the consequences behind the tragedy. On April 30, 2014, the trial for the case of the 2 bodies encased in paint buckets took place. Few people attended, mainly court officials, a few neighbors, and family members from both sides. Yang Shi Huang was sentenced to death for premeditated murder. His family appealed for a reduced sentence, citing that he was the only son in the family and that his young child needed a caregiver. Chun Maijiao's family also expressed hope for leniency toward Yang Shi Huang. However, given the meticulous planning of the murder, the prolonged concealment, and the deception used to mislead the victims' families, the court ruled that this was a heinous crime that severely violated the law and social ethics. Therefore, the court rejected the appeal and upheld the death penalty. The sentence was carried out on August 4, 2015. The identity of the killer shocked many. Yang Shi Huang was not a stranger to the community. He was a teacher with a seemingly normal, kind, and gentle demeanor, trusted and liked by many. The case was closed. Justice was served for the deceased. But the tragedy left lasting consequences for the 5-year-old boy, the only son of Qin Maijao. The child was raised by his paternal grandparents, But what does the future hold for him, now that both his parents are gone? The mistakes and betrayals of the adults in this case led an innocent child to bear the heaviest burden. What are your thoughts on the perpetrator and the victims in today's case? Share your comments below to discuss with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Decoder Box channel to stay updated on fascinating crime cases around the world. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.